I use the blanket.
I'm freezing.
There we go.
Yay, starting soon. I can see it.
Woohoo!
Always good news.
There we go. Hello,
Yay,
everybody
starting
out
soon.
there.
I can see it.
Woohoo!
We are live. Always
Yes,
good
we
news.
are live. There we go. Hello,
Yay,
everybody
starting
out
soon.
there.
I can see it.
Woohoo!
We are live. Always.
Yes. And for some strange reason, it decided that for once, when I brought up the stream, it would have volume instead of just being muted at start. How's before we get started? Can you all hear us out there? If so, how are the volume levels? Excellent.
Sounds good. All right. That's good news.
Well then, without further ado,
Go sit down.
let us get this show on the road.
Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Iculus. Hello, John. Captain Mymorph, Manda. And it is good to be seen. Welcome to Loremaster's Arcanum. Tonight's show, this is Loremaster's Arcanum number 63. I am your friendly guest host for this evening, Rob, Phantom NJ, and I am assisted by the amazing Evelyn, Theater Evie, who, she's always present in the Discord, so whenever you need help, she's going to be
sleeping me.
Oh, boy. So it's good to see everyone. Yeah, so for tonight's show, we're going to be discussing the joys and pitfalls of published adventures. Good evening, Fraley and Asher on Par. Nice to see people shuffling in. I realize we still have a few minutes to go before the 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central. Thomas, good to see you.
Hey, it's a Thomas.
Great Monsters of the Week game yesterday. This is Monsters of the Week, right?
Yeah, it was Monster, I think.
This week has been a year.
Yeah.
And Pat, I had no doubt that you've been lurking, waiting for this thing to start for 30 minutes. So tonight's topic. I guess the one thing I want to say about tonight's topic is, I don't want to be just me doing a heck of a lot of talking for an hour. I could. That's not why we're here. I want to make this as interactive as possible. So, and I was trying to think, kind of like pinging people to see who had some experience with doing a lot of published adventures. Strangely enough, it apparently don't know enough people. I need to widen that a bit. But I have Evelyn here with me, and let's start with that. Evelyn, I know you've been. Am I correct? Just remembering that you've been more of a player, that you're just like really getting started with DMing.
Yeah, actually, I've mostly played than DMing, though I have DM'd a little bit.
Okay. So as of, I guess, more than as a player, I know that, and we'll get to actually the latest game that you had played in. But have you had a lot of experience doing playing in published adventures, or has it been... Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I mean, Rise of the Rune Lords, of course, that we play on Sundays is a published adventure from Paizo. Though John modifies that based on, bringing our backstory information into it, but the story itself is an established module. It's 5 parts, I believe. And then over on Terry's channel, the couple of 2E campaigns that I've done with him, he runs from published adventures as well.
As a matter of fact, speaking of that, and did I not bring? Of course, it's the one thing that I have not brought into this. Let me add that real quick because that deserves to be added. And the screen is going to go a little ugly for a second, but I do believe this was at least the start of it.
The I can't remember what the very first part of the module is called. But yeah, it's a multi-part one as well. Extinction
Mm-hmm.
Curses.
Um, Tell me about Polish's adventures. Man, you're killing me. Um, so I mean, with the Pathfinder, and they're what they're called, adventure
Modules
paths.
or adventure paths, yeah, depending on yeah.
Um, do you, and now are they meant for like going a whole span of levels? Is it meant to be like the campaign?
Well, so I know that at least Extinction Curse, because Terry actually talked about this before we started it, with our group of friends, is that that one's actually intended to take you from level 1 to 20. Um,
Okay.
so for the full, it is a full campaign. It's written to be. I don't know is if the rest
I
of them
Let
are, but
me adjust this for a second. Somebody was saying that you were like twice as loud as I am, so
oh.
let me adjust the audio capture. I adjusted it a bit. Moose, let me know if it continues to be that loud. Um, Steve, I will get to the as far as like one page adventures.
Mhm.
I was kind of curious because I didn't have a lot of time, and it occurred to me entirely too late to look into the Pathfinder adventure paths, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's a thing.
Yeah. But yeah, they have quite a few, and with 2E they've been releasing quite a lot more as well.
Mhm.
So
So tell me what do you in terms of like adventure paths, are there certain things that you like about them, certain things that you may not like, or certain things that you would find possibly problematic in terms of a campaign?
I mean, it really depends on the DM. There's lots of like with John, for example,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't necessarily stick you in a box as far as like you have an adventure path that has certain points that you have to hit, but
Mm-hmm.
like he doesn't have like railroad at all. And I don't think that Terry is like that either as far as the way we do in our Pathfinder 2E campaigns. Like they pull a lot of the inspiration from the players, and if we go off in an unexpected direction, it's not like they have to get us back to a certain point. Like the story still is there, it's still going on. And so I think if it just kind of depends on the DM, because some DMs are going to be like, this is the strict, this is strictly what we have to do, and we have to stay on the module, so you have to stay on the railroad. But I haven't really experienced that, so I find it really fun and a good kind of thing, like skeleton, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
with a plot, which is nice.
It's funny that you should mention that because I am going to bring up um, a 5e. Well, I don't know what they're actually calling it, but it's really a 5e campaign, which I think is supposed to take you from 1 to 20. That is Tyranny of Dragons. Um, I you mentioned the having the up to the DM, and nice having a DM who doesn't railroad you and doesn't necessarily force you to stick to the adventure, because it can be really painful when the DM does force you to stick to the adventure, um, especially when you're not entirely enthusiastic about the adventure. Um, so yeah, I am I've had some bad experiences lately with the whole campaign concept of adventures. So it's cool to hear someone who enjoys what, first of all, has a DM that doesn't force you to stick to, the adventure is not the thing. The because when you find out that you're in the middle of it and you're like, this isn't really that fun and I'd rather my character be doing something else, you kind of have, if the DM's not flexible, you kind of have nowhere to go. Um, Actually, Steve, can you do me a favor? Throw up a poll for us and find out how many people have been in a full-on campaign version. You know, Yes, basically, it can just be yes or no. It's something where it's expected to take you from like level 1 to 10, or even 1 to 20. Again, trying to get an idea of what people's experiences are. Or fourth, my first time DMing, running B2 to keep on the Borderlands. Party to head off straight off the map and into the swamp. Nice. All right, now they're telling me I'm pretty quiet. That's interesting. Problems I don't normally have is people accusing me of being too quiet. Why am I so quiet? Uh, let's see. How's that? I mean, I can always talk louder, Amanda. Yeah. Yeah, Steve, I've got a job. I've got a job for you, man. Please set up a poll. Um, yes or no? Have you played in a campaign style adventure where it's supposed to take you, levels 1 through 10 or 1 through 20? All right, excellent. That sounds better. Uh, have you played in any of the D&D uh campaigns, Evelyn?
I did actually when I first started off way back in 2004. I don't remember the name of the module that we were playing in though, but he was
Okay.
using a module. But yeah, I remember, and it was like actual 3.5e because that was what was out at the time, and I don't remember the name of the module. I remember their goals because my cleric died the first session, but that's all I remember.
uh so I want to kind of go back to the beginning a bit and explore some of the different types of, because published adventures, and back then they were just simply called modules, were just I mean, they've always kind of been part of the scene, at least since the blue and red box came out, and then AD&D came out, and of course everyone is here is probably, or most of them are familiar with the Village of Hamlet. If not, well, why haven't you been watching Blue Box all this time? You well, I mean, I suppose some of you have just recently joined us, but that's okay. You'll catch up. Um, the Village of Hamlet. It's, from a module perspective. I mean, it's one of those early starter modules. They eventually rolled it up into, they kind of call it a super module of the Temple of Elemental Evil. Honestly, it still works very well as a standalone adventure, and I like to use this as an example, a good example of a rather sandbox adventure. There is Hamlet. You've probably heard from other sources mentioning it. Uh, it's a great starting point. It's it you. I mean, you've had your experiences there. Even played much after the original adventure was supposed to have taken place. There's a full town of things going on, and it really can go pretty much anywhere you want it. Um, I'm even if John killed them all off, or most of them off, I'm happy to see that you got to experience some of the well-known NPCs, Jeru, Osir Gundagoot, and such. But it's one of those adventures that has that sandbox feel to it. Even though, and some people may notice the T-shirt that I'm wearing, there is the ultimate point of the module, uh, being to vanquish the forces in the moat house. Uh, Actually, Steve, I'm just gonna keep you working tonight, man, because you showed up, and we got to have you. I know you love your polls. Um, uh, yes or no? Put up a poll, yes or no. I'm curious because I know we have quite a few longtime players, and um, it's been done in several editions of D&D. Have you ever played in a published a Hamlet adventure? Whether doesn't matter whether it's first edition, third edition. Uh, just have you played in the village of Hamlet? No more Umber Hulks. Oh, that's cruel. Um, actually, you now this is kind of a little bit. Sorry, words are hard right now.
It's you're good. You're good.
I've had two shots today, and like drinking water by the gallons, and you know, um, what did you? I know it wasn't quite running the adventure because it was a very customized, part of a campaign.
Right.
What were some of the things that you liked about about Hamlet itself?
Like everything. I love Toplet. It was great. I mean, I love Oscar Gundigut, and he's probably one of my favorite NPCs. He was just quite the character. And just how very well developed it is as far as like a
Hmm.
town goes, especially as like starting town, because a lot of places that I've played in, even with other modules, they don't necessarily build it out quite as thoroughly. I think the closest comparison I can make is Sandpoint in Rune Lords. They did a really good job building all that out and fleshing that all out. But yeah, I think Hamlet, and the nice thing about Hamlet too is it has all like the history associated with it. So when you're like playing in there, there's things that is tied to it that you can kind of discover and build from. And I like lore. I'm a big lore nerd, and anytime
Hmm.
that I can use that in my role play, I'm always really excited about that. So
Yeah, it's funny for as long as I've been playing, just before the pandemic hit was probably only the second or third time in God 40 years of playing that I actually got to run a group through the village of Hamlet. My players, and it was actually the last in-person session other than Blue Box Con that I managed to run, and we were during the Temple of Mount Evil, and they literally just finished taking out the moat house when everything went locked down. Like, that might be a sign. But yeah, there's so much. You're right. The Village of Homp. There is so much lore there. Huh. Okay. Yeah. Five is still respectable. What do you call it? Five is still respectable number.
Mhm.
We'll have to. I'll have to see about getting some of you through Hamlet myself. We can always do that. By the way, for the chat, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to discuss with regards to module, this is I want this to be a multi-way conversation. Um, one amazing set was the Avatar trilogy for Forgotten Realms. Idiot Riddles. By the way, Idiot Riddles is the creator of some very awesome dice vaults. If you ever and other merchandise, but he I have to prop this out because I mean this is just absolutely beautiful. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And yeah, he's the one responsible for this. Well, actually, he
So
created it,
pretty.
but it was a gift from someone else. But I also got it was so nice I ended up buying another one. Um, I don't remember the Avatar trilogy whether that was that the Fall of the Gods or I can't remember. Um, Actually, Steve also brought up an interesting point that there's some I don't know that I'd call them modules, but they're published adventures that are like basically a simple single page,
Mhm.
just stuff on a page, which makes for a great throw in. Just
Mhm.
really put it anywhere, and you have an interesting an interesting little interlude or just a quick adventure to put in the player's way.
Yeah, I mean, I've
That's
done I've actually run a single page like adventure RPG thing before, so and they're
Mm-hmm.
fun to do.
Um, Now, one of the interesting things about the as far as like the early modules is there are some of them that I love the fact, especially when you're talking about them, the ones that are in a particular setting. It's
Hmm.
being and the very early ones were mostly in Greyhawk, and then the Forgotten Realms. They started publishing adventures for the Forgotten Realms and such. Um, was the fact that you could just toss a module here, module in there. Back then, I mean, it may not be, you may have had the same characters, but it wasn't necessarily a long, cohesive story for a campaign. It was, what do we want to play this week?
Right.
Um, there are certain modules, and I forgot to grab a picture of it, but that back then that had a very different feel to them. They could be very, very deadly, and they were, mostly meant for because a lot of them were specifically designed for running at conventions. And sometimes the fun part about being at a convention, being a player there, is you're in a one shot. And you're in a one shot, and the adventure, the whole point of it is just try to live as long as possible. Uh, if anyone can guess to the specific module that I'm referring to, where living through it as long as possible is a badge of honor because you are likely going to die, we can. Ooh, Steve brings up some. That's a nice set of modules right there. Pat Fraley, you've got it. The Tomb of Horrors. I beg of you, if you're ever considering running, you know, bringing older modules up to date, or even if you're running a, alternate rule set, whatever the case may be, and you decide to throw in an adventure into, a published module, especially one of the old ones into yours, do not do the Tomb of Horrors as part of your campaign. I mean, unless you really, really, really don't like your players and you're just trying to convince them to quit, that is not meant to be a campaign adventure.
No, we don't want people to quit D&D. We want more people to play. Have you bad
Oh man,
idea?
there are actually it's funny. One of the characters in the original in Village of Hamlet is a character by the name as he's an NPC in the module by the name of Otis. Um, Otis was actually a player character played by Gary Gygax's son Luke.
Okay.
Otis died in the Tomb of Horrors.
Oh no.
And it was one of those instant death felon. I think he got sucked into a void, and that was that. I mean, that's harsh. It's like, of course, I think that's the reason. I could be wrong. I'd have to ask Jay about this, Lord Gazumba. But I'm pretty sure that was at the point where uh, no, Jay didn't kill. I don't think Jay killed Luke's character. That is a funny story though. Um, but that was I think that was what led to the creation of Melf, which is
Mm,
another famous D&D character, especially if
yeah.
you have Melf's acid arrow. Um, Now, what Jay did to Luke was Jay overruled Luke on how a spell that Luke helped create worked. Ah, speak of the man. There we go.
You summoned him. You said his name enough
Uh,
times and brought him forth.
oh man, that's great. Hey Jay, how's it going? We were just discussing Otis, the Tomb of Horrors, and then Melf and you. Oh, that's just fantastic. By the way, tonight, uh, you know, on Lord Gazoma's channel, he is going to have. It is tonight that Larry Elmore's there, correct? I'm not losing my mind. Just waiting on confirmation on that. Oh, he's gone quiet. Well, all right. So I guess it's going to be. You'll find out when it happens. But if you like, the old school D&D art, there's a few big names out there, and Larry Elmore is definitely one of the biggest. So hopefully he will be on Lord Gazumba at the show Legends of Lore tonight. Following here, we will be rating into there when when Jay goes on. Um, I did want to bring up another adventure, and this one it is another old school adventure. It's actually one that I ran recently in 5e for my players as part of the campaign. It's the only one. It's the only published adventure that I've run for my personal campaign that's been running online for God, is it 2 years now? It's been a long thing. White Plume Mountain. Um, White Plume Mountain is a very, very interesting place. It's a compact. It's not really a sandbox adventure by any means. It really is. It's a dungeon crawl. When it gets down to it, there's lots of interesting things to it. If you're looking for it and you're wondering how I did it in 5e, it is actually one. It is one of the adventures that is in Tales from the Yawning Portal supplement for 5e. Uh, I did run into some problems with it in 5e in that the levels that the characters are supposed to be, they tend to have powers that if they use their powers wisely, kind of like skip a whole bunch of things. And the funny part of it was my players weren't even intending to skip stuff. They were just trying to like keep their characters clean. And so yeah, it was kind of they managed to avoid a whole bunch of stuff just by playing true to themselves. Uh, One thing I'd like to draw your attention to, and if you look on at the image, there's something about the description of the module that probably should you might find kind of amusing, and that would be the recommended number of players. That is not a misprint. They have a recommended number of players of 4 to 10. So the good news is the Friday Night Crusade group is still in scope.
I was gonna say, you could play that with a pretty big group of players.
I mean, honestly, they're a level and a half away from being right there for it. Though I don't know, even 10 adventurers. Though I don't know that I want to send them all in there at level 5 because yeah, plus 10 pro swords got it right. 10 adventurers enter, only half of them leave. Oh, but yeah, it's a very self-contained adventure. There's a lot of things to do. Um, and it's one of those adventures that was great for just throwing into someplace. It doesn't require you can easily make it part of a larger campaign,
Mm.
but it's nice and self-contained. Uh, Anyone else have an adventure that they'd recommend that would also fit that mold? If so, just please throw it into the chat because uh, um, always loving, and it doesn't have to be 1E. It can be any adventure. And if you could, type a little bit about what it was you liked about it, because
Mm.
I can't say that I know them all. um, I actually that does bring up a question. I know that we had talked about you were getting more into DMing, and I'm first of all, I am super excited for when your homebrew stuff comes out because I still want the second part of that one shot. It's Come on.
Oh, I have my notes. I just have to get it all organized.
It's kind
Especially
of funny.
after what
Yeah.
happened in the previous session.
Yes, yes. No, there's all kinds of things that need to be resolved. I need to know. Uh, was S2 a tournament adventure? You know, um, it may very well have been. I'm trying to think because I mean, S1 is Tomb of Horrors. And so S2. It's I don't know if that entire line was tournament adventures. Back in the old days with the letter number designation, grouping things together. Uh, would you when you do start DMing regularly, do you
Mhm.
plan to like stick purely to homebrew? Are you considering running published adventures?
Well, it kind of depends. Like for my, at least for the my intended next thing, like my actual campaign, is it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
intending to use the homebrew stuff that I've been working on for that. But I don't know that that's going to be the only thing I ever do. I definitely would like to check out some of the modules and stuff because there's a lot of things that I actually have some of the books from for 5e. I haven't run 5e before, but I do have some of the books because they sounded interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely would like to maybe take a look at some of those and run those eventually, but I've been so focused on getting the homebrew, like the whole world building finished so that I can actually run that's been my primary focus at the moment.
Awesome. PSK Studio says I mix homebrew with D&D adventures. Um, I'm just out of curiosity. What have which published adventures have you used alongside your homebrew? Uh, let's see. Tournaments, various cons. Yeah, actually, that's a great point, Steve. Mentioning that at various conventions you had points by how far your group made it. That's actually kind of been a thing at Virtual Greyhawk Con. Casey or Draco has been doing that where he's been running the same adventure like 3 times or 4 times during over the course of the week over the course of the weekend and seeing basically how far you get, uh, which is kind of fun as a DM because it's one of those things where you have license to make the adventure a bit more deadly, especially the joy of one shots. I mean, okay, uh, all right, +10 broadsword. Hey, listen, if you've got adventures that you've been published adventures that you've been adding into your campaigns, or even if you're just stealing pieces of them, let's hear about it. Share what you've been using, because I'm sure that there are DMs out there who'd be interested in finding out what you can borrow. um, which is another great thing about published adventures is sometimes the setting's enough.
Yeah.
You know a Hamlet's one of those things where even if you're not playing in the world of Greyhawk, it's got a nice little village you can just grab, toss it anywhere, call it whatever. Um, but you've got framework to start with and build from
Mm-hmm.
there.
Well, and encounters I imagine could be easily
Mm-hmm.
pulled from one to the other.
All right, so
Search Tide, the Dread,
Savage Tide Adventure Path. Put some Cthulhu adventures in.
and threw in a visit to the Isle of Dread. At least that's
Um,
what the note said.
wow. That's oh my goodness. Oh man. Uh, Sigland, poor Lee's not even here to defend themselves. uh, Now that's cool. 88 Riddles running a one shot right now. Have adopted the stress mechanic from Aliens to add some suspense using Pathfinder 1E rules. Okay. Ooh. You know, that occurs to me that would be something that would be great for an adventure such as, and let me find the next one on the list. Uh, this may be Amanda's favorite
Ravenloft.
module, and it has nothing to do with actually the actual game itself. Uh, I, I won't lie. It probably is my favorite adventure of all time. I mean, it there's some stuff in there that you kind of need to update because it doesn't play as well with modern sensibilities. But you grow up, you learn, you adjust, and you can still it's still easily enough to change the thing so that funny Manda. Oh boy. Um, but it's one of those things where it's got such a great setting to it. It's got one of the, for my money, has one of the best BBGs that I've seen. Um, and it's one of those adventures that just kind of, if it's done well, it just sucks you in. And it's something where, they talk about the stress mechanic. And I agree that's one of those things where Ravenloft, even as it became a setting, um, it kind of needed, because otherwise you are really really relying on your players to stress themselves out, which, if you have really good role players, that, hey, listen, I it goes well with that. However, if they're not, well, it comes a little more straightforward. And if you're going to do gothic horror, there should be that creepy feeling that the players are getting. So you're kind of reduced for making them convinced that they're going to die, as opposed to making them convinced that something worse than death is going to happen to them. Pat 66. I combined Spelljammer and Ravenloft. Vampires in space. I like
Hello.
it. Evening, Asher. We've been discussing, modules through the years. Some 5Es, a little bit some Pathfinder, a lot of 1E. Uh, and it's kind of funny. Ravenloft. One of the interesting things was I used to wonder if everyone found it as interesting as I did. One of the best ways to tell that is interesting, or everyone found it interesting, is they keep redoing it. I'm not entirely sure because I can't remember if it was done for 4E. But as far as I know, Ravenloft has been redone for like every single edition of D&D there is, um, leading to the one that is basically been taken Twitch by storm. That being Curse of Strahd.
Hmm. Yep.
As much as I love the classic original Clyde Caldwell original painting for I6, that's just great. No, I will not be reading you a bedtime story tonight. You people are killing me with that. You're right, and that's very true. Plus 10 broadsword. There has been a lot of awesome supplemental materials for Curse Strahd. People been publishing different adventures in different places. Little side quests, lots of side quests. Honestly, there's been lots of encounters built for it. Drive through RPG, actually probably in DM's Guild, is just full of them. The stream has already been hijacked, Manda. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm running the show here. Oh boy, that's a good poll. Have you ever had the opportunity to either play or run a Ravenloft adventure. Doesn't matter what edition or what rule set. Robert von Zadovich. DM Dave puts out tons of free adventures as well. Nice. Oh boy. And in case you're wondering what Manda is talking about, oh, Evelyn, I just noticed we don't talk about 4E. You know, I I, I I'm kind of on the fence where 4E is concerned, honestly. Um, I love some of the source material for 4E. I liked the way they structured some of the books. I like that the supplemental material ended up being split up by the character uh, archetypes, whether it be Marshall for the different fighter groups, Divine and such. But uh, it is definitely true that's a very very different game. It's a very tactical game, which oddly enough actually brings it back to the roots of D&D, where it was born of tactical wargaming. Um, my problem mostly dealt with combat resolution and the fact that every ability was a special ability, which bogged things down. But I really did enjoy parts of 4E. I love some of the character class options, some of the new classes, some of the things that kind of sort of got folded into 5E, but not enough. Do you read my mind? Wait, Amanda, which comment was that?
My comment about 4E. We
Oh,
don't talk about 4E.
oh no. Okay. I see you. Okay, now it's stuck in my head.
I'm just sharing the love around because I did it to
Yeah.
myself.
Oh boy, that's one of those things where I didn't quite understand what was going on until I finally saw it. But yeah, no, no, that song does not leave. They're right. That song does not leave you. ah, six to six people have had the opportunity to play or run. Okay, all right, that's cool. Bless him, thought 4E was the worst. Yeah. Um. Okay. After listening to a lot of developers on Dragon Talk, Tabletop Babble, they made a lot of good points about it mechanically. I've become convinced that the number one way to fix 4E would be to get rid of at will powers. Just the idea that you could run there are certain powers that you could do every single turn, especially combat powers. It just seemed kind of weird. And that's the truth, Asher. Any given content may be usable. I don't. I look at content this way, especially published adventures. There's always something that you can mine from them. Um, there's always ideas. Now, that's not to say you should go out and buy every published adventure, but if you buy something and you find out, all right,
Awesome.
that's awesome, Jay. I'm glad to hear that. But if you do happen to buy adventure and you find yourself with buyer's remorse, uh, see what you can take from it. See if there's an interesting encounter in there that you can borrow and put somewhere else. If
Well, and
worse comes to
anything
worse.
can be adjusted, based on the edition. Like you can,
Hmm.
adjust spells and adjust various creatures and things to fit whatever edition you're running in. So
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the important things to note. And you kind of touched on it. Actually, you touched on it as a player. Is don't be even if you buy a published adventure, uh, don't go into it with the mindset that this is the adventure. I'm going to run it as written. Um, you know, Running as written or rule. The raw rules as written for the rule set. Uh, Tends to lead to problems because you're taking for granted that the thing makes sense in the first place, or you take for granted that it works for everybody. If the adventure is not working and you're finding problems, blow it up, use the skeleton, rebuild. Don't force yourself to go through an adventure or a campaign or whatever that isn't working for you. It's not working for your party. Um, doesn't quite fit the characters that you have, because
Right.
that can also be sometimes. And actually, that's one of the things that scares me about the whole campaign notion. Granted, 5e is kind of, with 5e at least, it kind of becomes everybody can do everything, so it's not quite as important anymore. But if you don't have what you need, or the party is not a good fit, that can lead to problems. Pat 6, I've seen it ran on an actual table with minis and terrain with no role playing. I would, that does not surprise me at all, Pat. I can believe that. Um, Actually, 4E, interestingly enough, was my initial exposure to using minis for D&D. Um, I know minis existed. I didn't get to play much in the 3 and 3.5 days, which is also kind of why I missed Pathfinder altogether, because it was during that dark period. Also why I was 20 years late, 16 years late to Castles and Crusades. But 1E and 2E, honestly, didn't have the money for minis.
Mm. Yeah, when
uh,
I first played, it was all theater of the mind. Like,
yeah,
and like graph paper to see roughly where like the dungeon stuff was, but there were no minis. We had dice and we had our imagination.
a lot of imagination. Actually, graph paper. I remember the days of sitting there with a ruler and making our own graph paper. Because finding graph paper and getting that was Christmas when we were making maps. But yeah, 4E was like my introduction to minis, because back then we had a choice. It was like, yeah, you can have minis or you can have the books. Can't have both. It's Oh man, that just it. Now I have a I might have a small addiction growing. Oh,
You're saying you're
I
making up for lost time with your collection of minis?
Yeah, and depending on when certain Kickstarters actually come in, my collection is going to get way out of hand. Okay, my collection's already way out of hand. My collection's going to go way, way, way out of hand. City Guard of Hebron, did you walk to school uphill in snow both ways? No. However, the first store that I ever went to buy my own D&D books, I did have to walk to uphill both ways, because there were two hills. And the sad part of it was, the big hill was the one that I had to go up on the way back. And I look at this hill now and I think to myself that, as kids, we really, really must have been dedicated to wanting to play D&D, because I can't even imagine doing that now as an adult. uh, Dry Erase. Listen, Dry Erase works perfectly well. I've got a bunch of battle maps of different types that I use, that I throw some of the terrain crate stuff on. One of our wonderful sponsors. Actually, probably should have a mention of our various sponsors. Evelyn, I'm going to give that to you.
Of course, I can do our sponsors. I just put Mantic stuff in there. They do turn great. They're great. We also have Coach Gamer. She does dice. Her name's Darren. You can see all the sparkly, sparkly things on Twitter and Instagram, and her website, which I just linked, which is awesome. And I've spent a lot of money on because I love her. Um,
Cozy Gamer stuff is just amazing. I think I bought Cozy Gamer dice for at least 6 different people, and some people more than once, for gifts, because the dice she makes are just fantastic.
mm-hmm. And then we have, of course, Hob, our very, very talented artist who has done all of the art for our Greyhawk Awakening Book 2 crew, and she's been sharing them, and it's incredible, and you should definitely check Hob out. And she just actually reopened her commission, so, if you need some art for your characters, go talk to Hob. And then we also have Ferox Fabrication, Darren, who is a one-man band, makes all of the really, really nice laser-etched wood stuff. He does mini painting supplies and DM screens and signs and stuff like that. And then we also have, as I said already, Mantic. We have Troll Lord Games. They are the publishers of Castles and Crusades that Robert talked about already, and he runs our Friday Night Crusades in our Discord every Friday night. So if you want to get on that, that's in our Discord. Come join us on Discord. It's really fun. Let's see who forgetting anybody? Ferox. Oh, Mike Disney, of course. We don't want to forget Mike Disney. Mike Disney is a mini painter and an artist, and he's incredible. And he created the Overlord. So if you heard anything about the Overlord, which I mean, I can't imagine you're in any circle right now that is any related to minis and not have heard of the Overlord. But yeah, go check out Mike. He streams usually over on his Twitch channel in the kind of earlier part of the day. So give Mike a visit. Yes, that's everybody.
Awesome, thank you. I would not have been able to have got through that. Yes, the Overgord. Yes, I can say that I have lost a character to the Overgord.
Indeed.
Oh boy. Thankfully, it was a one shot, so it didn't hurt that badly. Though I mourn my my bardic half orc bard, singing all the songs to him. Honest question: who enjoys tournament adventures more, DMs or players? Ooh, ooh, that's a good one. Um, you know, that's that's a really intriguing question. I'm not entirely sure I have an answer for you because I've been on both sides of that equation. Um, I can see that, especially if it's one of those tournament adventures where the idea is to live as long as possible. Because if it's that style of adventure, now there's I mean there's those that are live as long as possible and those that are advance as far as possible. Sometimes the adventure, I mean technically it probably should be both at the same time, but you kind of get an idea of which one, which theme they're going with more. Um, the problem with whether being a player and if your character dies early, I'm thinking you're not enjoying the adventure that much. So yeah, I think you're right, Pat. I think it probably is. I think it probably is the DM. Now, having said that, while tournament adventures tend to be very deadly, as a DM, you still need to make sure that you're not killing all your players off in the first room because you probably will have things thrown at you. Those running it are in the best ways. That's an interesting way to put it, Tim. Yeah. Okay. Sure. I would agree with that. Um. Hmm. The one of the things that evolved over the years, and it was kind of funny because I kind of did this backwards. I had meant to like work up to like the Extinction Curse and Tyranny of Dragons. Was this idea of having adventures, not so much like it was an adventure path in the sense that there was a series of adventures that could be run one after the other with tie-ins. Um, I think one of the things back then that was more prevalent was the fact that they still could be they were more self-contained in that if you wanted to do them one after the other, you could. If you only wanted to do one, and you could kind of start really anywhere in the chain. Um, the old Slave Lords module, um, they put together, they put all of that series in a book, which I have something around here somewhere. Um, but then you have there's a super module, Queen of Spiders, which is actually a compilation of like 5 or 6 different modules, which most of them were originally separated. They decided to put them all together and kind of tie them in, but you didn't have to. Now it feels more like the theme goes back to, it's going more and more towards the full on adventure path. Actually, that does bring up an interesting question for, because I'm not nearly as familiar with Pathfinder. You and Terry are the only 2 people to have run me through a Pathfinder game. I can say I've run through Pathfinder 1 and Pathfinder 2 second edition, because both each of you ran me through one of each. Um, do they do like adventures that, self-contained adventures, or is it more adventure paths? Each of them adventure paths.
I mean, there are lots of like one shots that they've made that are like standalone one shots,
Okay,
but
yeah,
like as far as
mhm.
because like what what Terry's run, obviously like the kobolds, that one is a one shot, though it's just a longer one, and he did the high seas pirate one with us, and then yeah, and then 1E has a lot of those type of one shots as well, and then of course they have their longer adventure paths, but yeah.
Okay, cool. In 5e, it seems like a lot of them are, not necessarily full length campaigns, but multiple adventures at least tied together. Um, I never actually checked Curse of Strahd to see what levels, how long that was supposed to. I think that's still not quite a full campaign. Though I've noticed, one of the things I've noticed, especially on TTRPG Twitter, is that the term campaign does not mean what it used to. Now it is basically any storyline that has a definitive beginning and definitive ending at some point is a campaign. So it occurs to me that I have to kind of make sure I'm defining how, the campaign, what a campaign means, and depending on who I'm talking to.
According to what the website says, Curse of Strahd 5e is for levels 1 to 10.
1 to 10. Oh,
Mhm.
all right. Well, that's still. Oof, jeez, they send them. I have to. It occurs to me that I really need to take a look at Curse of Strahd, because level 1. Oh, that's brutal. Wait, I need to go back to the original Ravenloft one again, because I'm pretty sure that starts at like level 5. Uh, yeah, an adventure for 6 to 8 characters of level 5 to 7. I'm kind of laughing because I think it strikes me as odd now that like all these first edition adventures are, 6, 7, 8, 10 characters. But back then, I think it was probably much more common to see people playing multiple characters in an adventure. Mostly because of the fact that, well, it wasn't easy to find players to start with. So yeah, if we didn't have, unfortunately, we did not have the internet and such. You might be able to find a gaming group if you were lucky. You might live in an area that had a gaming group, and if you're even luckier, you might actually like the people in your gaming group. Um, that number also includes hirelings and followers. The hmm. Well, followers. I think the problem with I mean, hirelings I could see, Steve, but followers, you really in first edition you didn't really get followers until level 9. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think you actually. I don't know of any of the classes that got followers before level 9. And hirelings are expensive. Most players I knew did not want to spend money on hirelings. But yeah, Curse of Strahd, level 1.
Yeah, at least the 5e edition. That's what it says.
Whew. Okay, I need to go. I need to go take a look at that because I'm curious as to what on earth they have the characters do at level 1. All right, so I noticed that they had said that Jay had gone live, and while I normally don't want to cut things short, I'm probably one of the first
Yeah,
people
he's
to
definitely live.
try to stick with it as long as possible. Um, the fact that he has or is going to have Larry Elmore on, I wanted to get everybody over there as quickly as possible. Just
Fair.
because you don't get guests like that, very often. Well, okay, maybe Jay does, but this is still a special occasion. So,
Indeed.
um, first of all, thank you everybody for tuning in. Evelyn, thank you very much. This would have been this would have been a really really rough thing if I had to sit here and talk by myself. Um, so I really I appreciate that. Um, I'm like Elmer excitement, accidentally deleting messages. I mean, okay, I will buy the Elmer excitement. You got a little twitchy with the finger there.
Yep.
But before we go, we here at Blue Box have a question that we want to ask. If you're
Indeed.
watching the stream and you're enjoying it, but you have not yet followed, or if you have followed but you have not yet subbed, or gasp, you've subbed but your sub has
Has
lapsed and have not
expired.
resubbed yet. It's expired. We have one question for you. What are
What?
you doing? Oh, thank you, everyone.
Yes.
We are going to set up the raid for Lord Gazamba. I do not have permission to
I
perform
can
that
do
action.
this.
I do not have the power.
I have it
uh,
ready. It's ready to go.
oh wow! So yeah, everybody, please once you get over there, give a big warm Blue Box welcome or greetings to everyone there, and I hope you all enjoy I hope you all enjoyed this show tonight. I actually I will be here next month as well doing another show. Topic to be decided, and I want to give a little shout out. First of all, Evelyn is playing Monday nights on Terry's channel in
Mhm.
a new Pathfinder 2e campaign.
And
And
Kayla will be joining us on this next Monday. She just wasn't
yes,
feeling well
yes.
this week, so
And speaking of which, I will be playing on Sunday on Kayla's Time Lord Wife's channel on a brand new TTRPG. We are in session 3. It is chaos. It is lots of fun. And the name of the game is New Avarden. I hope you'll come watch us play. We're having great fun with it. Have
all
a great
right.
night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
And there goes the raid.
Ah,
Don't forget to end your stream.
mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep.